If you think that Duolingo sucks, then today I am here to change your mind. Now, Duolingo does quite a few things great in my opinion, which I will explain in a little bit, but I also want to talk about the pitfalls of Duolingo because we all know that there are some. But I have found a specific method to overcome those pitfalls, which I want to share with you guys in today's video because I think they will be really helpful for you if you're using Duolingo. So let's talk about some of the things that Duolingo gets right. One of the areas that Duolingo thrives in is vocabulary acquisition. I think that Duolingo personally has helped me acquire vocabulary a lot more than a lot of other things that I could have done, especially as a beginner. Also on Duolingo, you get a lot of opportunities to listen to what is said. I highly recommend also shadowing as you learn. So every time you listen to a new word, every time you listen to a new sentence in Duolingo, repeat that out loud because that will really help you build pronunciation skills and that will help you later as well with speaking. This is the biggest benefit I think that Duolingo provides, which is the way they teach grammar implicitly. And what I mean by that is instead of just giving you a grammar point and saying, okay, this is the grammar we're going to learn about today. This is how you make this type of grammar. This is how you use it. They don't actually explain it to you. They just show it to you. They give you sentences using a specific grammar structure, and then they plug and chug like verbs into it, or they plug and chug nouns or adjectives into it. So you get the same sentence structure over and over and over, but just different examples of it. And naturally, as you're practicing it, at first you don't necessarily see the pattern and you make mistakes. And then you learn from the mistakes and you start to see the pattern behind, like, oh, okay, this is how I plug things into this. And by the end of a section, you will really have internalized that specific sentence structure, which is basically you learning new grammar. And this is why so many people will say that, go Duolingo, their sentences are weird. No one says that. But honestly, as someone who has studied multiple languages, also someone who has taught English to a lot of different people, I will say that to me it seems very obvious that Duolingo is not trying to specifically teach you like sentences to go and survive in that language tomorrow. They're trying to implicitly teach you the grammar through pattern recognition. But the way that grammar is taught in Duolingo, while I think is such a great thing, it is kind of where the problem begins. But the problem that I noticed is that once you learn things and you move on to the next, there is no systematic way to go back and specifically find the vocabulary or the grammar that you previously learned. I want vocabulary lists for each section. I want grammar lists for each section. So just to sum it all up for you guys, my biggest problem with Duolingo is not how things are taught. It's not how the app is set up. It was more or less the fact that you cannot go back and reference vocabulary lists or grammar lists or even find grammar notes anywhere on the app, which made going back to old concepts and reviewing things a little bit hard. And also personally, sometimes when I'm in the thick of a section, it is nice to see a list of the words because sometimes I make the same mistake over and over again. And if I could just look at a list and review it briefly, that would help a lot. But thankfully, I was able to find a solution to this. Now, I want to preface this to say that I use this all the time. Like every time I use Duolingo, I use this religiously. That if I stopped doing this, I don't think that I could stand by my claim that Duolingo was great, because I think Duolingo is great because of what Duolingo is, plus this method that I use. I take screenshots all the time. So there's a certain page on Duolingo where it will like introduce a new word. It will show you 4 pictures and you have to, identify which of those 4 pictures is that new word. So when it introduces new vocabulary that way, I will screenshot those. And what I do is I select the answer and press OK or submit or whatever that button is. And it pops up a green screen telling you it's correct or a red screen telling you the correct answer. I screenshot that one. And then as I'm going through the section, I'm in more of the mid lessons. That's the point where a lot of things, like a lot of words have stuck. A lot of sentence structures have stuck, but there's certain words or certain sentences that I mess up on. When I go through those ones specifically, I'll keep screenshotting the more difficult ones. When I finish the section, just before I go on to the next one, what I do is I go back on my phone, I look at my screenshots. I'll just make a little vocab list in my notebook and like what it means. And then I'll go through all of the sentences I took pictures of, and I just write the sentence in my notebook. Like I don't spend time translating, like I don't write the English next to it, and then I just delete all the screenshots. And then what I'm left with is in my notebook, I have one section, for example, maybe I have a section of food. And then I have example sentences which are utilizing a certain grammar point probably, but it's also showing all of those food related words in context. And then I can read those sentences at any time I want to refresh that information. This is also nice when it comes to grammar because I know, for example, like some of the sections in Duolingo are focused on conjugating verbs. Like I specifically remember one section in Duolingo for Hungarian was really challenging for me because it was teaching you how to conjugate verbs in the present tense, but it was like introducing a ton of new verbs all at once. And there's like slight differences in how certain verbs are conjugated. And I was like, oh my God, okay, it's hard for me to totally elicit the pattern here, that I would make mistakes easily because I was learning through these patterns, but there was a little bit too much detail to them. And I had no way to like reference them. So through my screenshots, I was able to kind of pick out, okay, these were all of the verbs that they introduced to me. So what I did was I made a list of the verbs. And then I went online, I looked at how these verbs are conjugated in the present tense, and I was able to realize like, oh, okay, like these verbs that I learned were this pattern, and these verbs were this pattern, and these verbs were this pattern, and realize like, oh, so they introduced 3 verb types. And then I grouped my example sentences from my screenshots. I organized them into these 3 conjugation patterns. So that way, when I go back to my notes, I can see not only all of the verbs that I learned, but like I could actually draw that immediate pattern myself, like, oh, okay, these verbs are conjugated this way, and here's some examples. These verbs are conjugated this way, and here's some examples. And that's something that if I had only used Duolingo, if I never did screenshots, I never did outside research, I never did anything but just what Duolingo gives you, I would never really be able to glean that information and really internalize it in the way that I did. And this is why I think this method is so powerful, because it really adds a little sprinkle of hands-on effort to really drive home the lessons that Duolingo gives you. And the nice thing about taking screenshots is you don't actually have to do the note-taking while you're on Duolingo. Because if you're like me, you might be using Duolingo in places like I use it on the subway. I use it at work on my break time. I use it in public, like when I'm waiting for a doctor's appointment. Like I use it in places where I'm not really able to sit down and take notes. And I don't want to limit myself to only being able to use it in moments where I can. I just want to use it whenever I want to use it. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you do end up using this method with Duolingo, please let me know down in the comments how it goes, how you feel about it, if you found it helpful. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you guys next time.